Okay, we're going to episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. A really cool review for you guys from the brand Seiko. A little about them. They were founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin, now factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And in terms of the type of watch, I consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics in design language. You're looking for something you can wear every day. Of course, you're going to want to find that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. This is their Seiko 5 Sports line, and this is a new release in their SNXS series. You see here the SRPK87, 89, and 91, and these are all essentially modern revivals of the popular SNX series of smaller everyday watches, now with improved specs and build quality. These go for $395 at full MSRP from Mimo's Jewelry, and these were lent in by Mimo himself, so big shout out to Mimo. Definitely check him out, and if you do end up using the links down in the description, also use the code SPORT at checkout for the best deals plus free US shipping. These watches are really outstanding. I'm really excited to have them in and share with you guys each colorway, because I do think that they do have a whole lot to offer. At 37.2 millimeters in diameter, I think they do have a lot of value, plus you're getting the upgraded movements, so you're going to have hacking and hand winding, which is great. And honestly, at the most expensive they'll be is $395. That's full MSRP, and some of you are remembering the old SNX watches were actually quite cheap, and you can get them for like 90 bucks sometimes even, and maybe even still today you can find some of those older 7S26 and 7S36 powered models at those lower entry level prices. But you also have to remember those watches were released like 20-30 years ago, when there was never really any adjustments to the pricing since, and they've been produced and overproduced in a very, very large abundance. So kind of unfair to compare 30-year-old pricing standards to today's pricing models, because things are a lot more expensive than they were 20-30 years ago. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now these did come from Mimos. The nice thing is he's actually an authorized dealer, so you're going to get the cards with these. These, of course, do have some plastic. I'm going to try to be as, non-disruptive or intrusive to the packaging plastic as possible, because these are watches that are still going to go up for sale, so I won't be, sizing or adjusting any of these, and I'll just be kind of peeling some of the tape back so you guys can get a closer look. You guys know I'm a big fan of blue dials, and so let's go ahead and start with the blue dial in terms of looking at these dimensions up close. 37.2 millimeters in diameter, and that is directly across from the 3 o'clock to the 9 o'clock. If you were to measure it actually more from 2 to 8, it actually even gets a little bit wider. And that's one of the things that's nice here, is that as small as these are, if you have a larger wrist, I think you're going to be surprised by how well these wear in terms of their proportions. And then if you have a small wrist, the scale and the ultimate sizing is totally going to work for you, but it's also going to be, you don't have to take as much of an advantage of the visual weight that's going to be happening, because you're still going to be getting quite a nice visual punch. So these are 12.7 millimeters thick, thanks to that slightly curved hardlex crystal there, and 44.3 millimeters lug to lug, which is extremely wearable, guys. You're also getting drilled lugs, as you guys can see, 18 millimeters. So very, very proportional. Would I have preferred 20 millimeter lugs? Yeah. Would I prefer 19 millimeter lugs? Yes. But because of the proportions, I think this looks great. If they made it larger, if they made this a 38.5, then yeah, 20 millimeter lugs would have been perfect, or 19 millimeter lugs would have been okay. But in this case, I can't argue with it, especially when you look at that end link, guys. I give a lot of props to micro brands when they do this with their end links. It's very easy to just do a milled end link and then just kind of carve in 2 lines to mirror, the 3-link setup. Here, you guys can see contoured with a step that is pretty well defined, guys, in terms of that kind of 3D milled end link. So I can appreciate that. Also, the blue here is immaculate, very deep and dark. And of course, in different lighting situations, it might render as visually black. But even when it gets blue, it never gets to a silly, cartoonish, overly retro blue. This is a really, really nice blue. I would love to see this in some of their higher end offerings. The case, brushed and polished, guys, as you guys can see, really nice. Let me give it a quick little wipe here off camera, just so you guys can get a bit of a better appreciation for how sharp these finishes are in terms of that transition there from brushed and polished. Now, it's not Zaratsu polishing, and this isn't fine luxury hairline brushing, but man, the satin's nice, the polish is deep. It is very, very handsome. Now, the crown, although small, does have the underside exposed. So check that out. So underside exposed, whereas up here, it's going to be a little bit more hooded. So that means when you're winding, you're going to just go ahead and do this. You're going to have this finger underneath. You're just going to do a little roll, and that's going to work for you. When you pop it out, hacking, hand windable, and it works, guys. So not the end of the world, the fact that they do have a very true to form small crown, because before these weren't hand winding movements, so you didn't necessarily need to think about that. But I would say that in terms of the execution today, totally doable, perfectly fine. Now, getting into the movement, although you guys can get a nice little view of it, check that out through that display case back. You're going to have the automatic Seiko 4R36, 36 as in a day date complication, and it has a 41-hour power reserve, beats at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of that beat rate. So the 4R means that you're not going to get the niceties of having a sprawn hairspring, which typically Seiko uses to, one, have more anti-magnetic resistance, as well as two, extend those power reserves. So just the more standard 41-hour power reserve versus something like a 50-hour power reserve or a 70 or 72-hour power reserve. So smaller power reserve, but again, for a very affordable watch, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Getting into the dial itself, you guys, ooh, check that out. So glossy black, glossy blue, glossy black, and very nice. You do have the contrasting sloped chaptering there, applied indices, because these are not pro spec sports watches, dive watches, where they're gonna have to worry about getting banged around and indices falling out. So they've been stamping them through in terms of wanting to be very robust in terms of shock protection. Here you're gonna get applied indices because it's just, they look good and they work. And then contrasting, guys, which might be my pick of the litter here, is this beautiful Sunray dial. Check that out. Now with a dark outer chaptering. So that looks fantastic. So you're still getting the applied indices. You're getting that day date complication. Nicely framed, guys. You're getting the negative style there in terms of the discs there. So these are going to be black date wheels and day wheels, and you can see here a little bit more contrasting here. It's going to blend a bit more, and then with the blue, it's just pretty smooth in terms of that by choosing the darker color. If I could get it to focus here, there we go. I think that looks great. I would say knee-jerk reaction, I love the blue. I think it's going to be very versatile, but if the longer I look at it, I think this is the one in terms of the one that excites me out of all of these. Now, very quickly, 18mm lug width drilled. Then you get a nice little taper here from about 18mm down to 15.7mm on this side. And then, of course, you're going to have this nice push button buckle here, and you can see stamped, but it works, and then it's very comfortable, flows very nice size wise, and it does have 2 positions in terms of the manual micro adjust. So very clean, and this is about, let's say, 17.3mm wide on that side folding clasp. But with that said, let's actually get these draped over the wrist. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, I think this wears really great. Of course, again, I don't have this adjusted in terms of fitment, so it's going to be a little bit loose, but you can see on my, larger side of average 7.5 inch wrist, I think this still looks great. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit closer to the camera, you're going to get some distortion in terms of the perspective, and some of you are going to go, ooh, that's the perfect size. And you know what? Guys who wear this watch and take pictures of it on Instagram, and you have the lens real close to the watch, it's going to appear larger and it's going to be like, ooh, that's a perfect fit. But I will say, in reality, guys, if you take a better look there, a little bit of a truer perspective and aspect ratio, this is a smaller watch. And, as much as it has those undercuts and contours, it's smaller. So what I like to do is just leave my wrist nice and low and then tighten up the frame so you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. And yeah, that's not a large watch. I don't consider it necessarily undersized, but I will say, depending on your attire and your style, you might find it undersized. I do have a rounder wrist, so it's not like my wrist is even super wide and accommodating. But I will say that this will probably be better suited for something where it's like more business casual attire. Maybe you're wearing a long sleeve shirt every once in a while. This is the perfect type of watch that would go great sliding underneath the cuff, thanks to those very nice organic bevels, those nice round, just the shape. It just flows, guys. I'm really digging this. I mean, even the way the bracelet flows, this is just a really nice, comfortable and tidy watch. It's not doing too much, but it's not overly plain or boring either. So I can absolutely appreciate that. The undercuts, the bevels, the nice short links, so you can really dial in. So you don't really need a big clasp with a bunch of micro adjustment positions. When you have short links like this, you can still dial in the fit very nicely. And again, I think this is great. And with that 18mm lug and quick release spring bars, you can of course always put these on straps as well. And you can even make them feel a little bit dressier, maybe on a leather strap. This one I think will look great on a brown leather, whereas I think black leather is going to be suiting the black and blue dial a lot more. So these look great, guys, but let's go ahead and get to the lume, because it's actually quite interesting. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get this set up for some lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check that out. Blue tinted Lumen Bright. Now, they don't use this all the time, but I have seen this in various models, and it's always a surprise when I do catch that, because typically Lumen Bright is going to glow a really beautiful green. Here you're getting that cool blue tone. So very, very nice. Again, something a little bit different, especially when you think about that these are relatively original pieces, although the models that they're based on are definitely pretty well known for being kind of a date just comparable. But I think they've gone out of their way to really add a little bit more differentiation, a little bit more pizzazz and a retro personality within these colorways, especially with the contrasting date wheels, the contrasting chapter rings, guys, and even in the choices of dials, where you're going to get that nice inky glossy blue and black option, and then of course that really, really cool sunray kind of warm tan or taupe color. But man, these play amazing in this low light. Yeah, I really like to work that in, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're gonna find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe include a bit of harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But all you're gonna notice here, of course, is gonna be some really, really nice finishing, nice deep glossy polished surfaces, as well as some really nicely done and well executed satinization in terms of the brushing. Also, you're going to notice the texturing on the dial with the sunray versus that nice gloss. These are going to be a little bit more true on the glossy side. Of course, the blue is going to catch every once in a while and really appear blue, but never bright, never cartoony. So I do like that, where the black just stays inky deep and dark, so you're getting maximum contrast there. And then of course the sun ray is going to play around with a lot of different patterns in terms of the light, creating bouncing and refracting back at you for just that little extra bit of visual play. So with that said, guys, closing thoughts. On the wrist, really great compact size, perfect for smaller wrists or larger wrists that love more vintage size tastes. Also, again, very accommodating for long sleeve casual wear. Now, in terms of model variants, so far, these three variations are what comprise the SNXS series, but like all other Seiko 5 models, I'm sure we'll eventually see a wide range of diverse options. In terms of comparable models, at the price point, guys, it's tough to beat the street cred that a Seiko 5 offers. Remember, you're getting an iconic style from the original brand versus the bevy of homage watches that flood the rest of the under $500 market. This is a Seiko that looks like a Seiko, and there is something about that that just adds more value versus every other watch that, whether it be a micro band or a factory brand, where it might have a, maybe even a taller spec sheet, but at the end of the day, it's a watch meant to look like another watch. The watch that it looks like is from the same, there's a reason why people enjoy the Tudor Black Bay as a sub homage more than your average sub homage. There's a certain level of street cred that goes with that. And with Seiko 5, these lines, these bevels, these little elements, they all come together to create a very distinctly Seiko experience. And I think that is definitely something that can go underappreciated at times. So for me, guys, bottom line, while Seiko's upper tier releases continue to be quite controversial and even polarizing amongst enthusiasts, their Seiko 5 sports releases continue to tap into a real sweet spot for those valuing fully integrated in-house qualities and significant brand history, all for a relatively affordable price point. For the interest that they may lose in the value for spec forward enthusiast market, I think they'll continue to thrive in the casual heritage market. So while there are going to be, again, watches that may have a taller spec sheet, more bullet points, and may even be more feature rich, the level of in-house ingenuity and vertical integration that you're going to get from these products, as well as the level of heritage that's going along with these pieces, I think is going to outweigh that for a lot of folks. Not everybody. These watches are definitely not for everybody, especially at the size. I would love to see these at a 38 or a 38.5 with a 20 millimeter lug width. I think that would be very good. But Seiko 5 already kind of has watches that are like that, so I think they'll be fine without this. Another cool thing they could do, they could bring back from some of their older models and integrate, which I think would be nice, is if they did like a brushed bezel with engravings, whether it be like maybe a 12-hour or maybe even a 24-hour if they were to make these into GMTs. I think that could be really, really cool. But again, they already do have Seiko 5 watches that have that aesthetic, so I think they're going to continue to keep it funky and probably just bring out some other colorways, maybe even some more monochromatic, more sedate, more classic, after these kind of more fun models are really mixing things up and really feeling revitalizing to this really popular line. But with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. Another huge shout out to Mimo from Mimo's Jewelry in Long Beach. Guys, he is a mainstay of the collector community thanks to channels like Random Rob, and I know a lot of you guys are also fans of his channel. I'm a big fan of it. Rob's a great guy, and Mimo even hosts an annual gathering for watch enthusiasts there, and that's where you get to hang out with guys like Jeff McMahon as well, and other great YouTubers that are local to the area, as well as Rob, who will fly in. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.